Thank you very much. And you might be tired, but you're doing a sterling job. Just a little recap on yesterday. What a fabulous day. Beautiful food. I'm just thinking about the lunches and the morning teas and the afternoon teas. Every single bit of it's been cooked by the students here, and we need to give them a big hand for that. It's been brilliant because the concepts have fitted so much in with and I can't wait to see what happens at the gala dinner tonight. I'm sure that's going to be absolutely spectacular. It's just been in the most extraordinary, and we were thinking about it last night when we were at one of those pop-up dinners we were with Alex Davies at Morning Magpie, and there were 6 of us sitting around, and we were talking about the layers of everything that you're going to take away from this conference, because here is food design, but there's the design element, there's the human touch, there's every aspect feeding into it. So I'm delighted too to this morning that we have the Silver Fern Farm guests are the wives of the farmers of New Zealand, but the wives of the farmers is a terrible term because these women actually are the farmers and they're the backbone of our country, so a special welcome to you. So today it's appropriate because today we're going to explore New Zealand cuisine. What is New Zealand cuisine? How do people interact with the landscape and its resources to create something that tells the story of our land and people? There's no one better than Al Brown to explain that to us. And then after that, we're all going to have an opportunity to get our hands dirty exploring New Zealand cookery. But Al Brown shouldn't really need any introduction. Anyone who's eaten at his Depot Eatery and Bar in Auckland's Sky City wouldn't wonder why he's been singled out to kick off our exploration. Because of those of you who haven't eaten at Depot, it's almost like going to a meal at your favourite batch, or crib you call it down in this part of the world. It's the absolute epitome of where you could eat New Zealand food with terrific raw food, raw bar with shellfish, loads of dishes that we all love to call comfort food, and eating there every night or every lunchtime is like a casual party with friends. Al grew up in rural New Zealand. He did his culinary training offshore. He went to the New England Culinary School in the USA. And over the past 10 years, he has become a household name here in New Zealand as he's focused on showcasing the best of our food. His approach to cooking is simplicity and generosity. People and place are his key philosophy. He believes friends and unique locations always enhance an eating experience. He rose to prominence in 1996 when he and Steve Logan opened the very sophisticated and marvellous Logan Brown in Wellington, but then he forsook Wellington to come to Auckland to open Depot, but also opened another venue which is almost next door called Federal Delicatessen, and then this lovely business that is called Best Ugly Bagels. And I think that probably Federal Delicatessen and Best Ugly Bagels are a little bit of a nod to the time that he spent in the States, because all your journey is what makes you. But his love of New Zealand seafood is really the standout, and that inspired his first book, Go Fish, Recipes and Stories from the Great New Zealand Coast, and that has won major awards even around the world. He's passionate about the outdoors, as evidenced in his first TV presenting gig, Hunger for the Wild, and since then he's presented Get Fresh with Al Brown, dishing up Australia and coasters, and of course so if there's one man that truly captures the spirit of New Zealand in his approach to everything, it's Al Brown. My pleasure to welcome you this morning, Al.
Thanks, Lorraine, and thanks to Richard, and thank you for all of you showing up this morning on this frosty, cold morning. I'm staying at the Commodore Hotel, and actually motel I think it is, and I thought, oh well, I'll walk down, it's only sort of 10-minute walk. I was like going like this all the way, and the funny thing was, this car pulled up and someone just hopped out in jandals and just scuttled pie, which I thought was quite interesting. I'm all rugged up, the soft Aucklander that I am now these days. I guess I was going to talk, or Lorraine sort of alluded to, attempting to sort of define where we are in this country and our cuisine. And I've been fortunate enough to be a big part of it for sort of 20 or 30 years. And I think it's quite apt that I got asked to do this because I'm actually writing a book about it at the moment, which is quite a big project. And it's been an amazing, I think when you write and you sit and you sort of think about and you look back, you understand, or you become quite proud of what we've done or what we've achieved. And I think a lot of that in life, we don't look back enough. We're always looking forward about the next thing. And we don't realise how amazing or where we've come from and what we've, I guess, kind of established. I'm down here for the day. I got down last night. I'm here this evening. I think it's a question that often gets posed around this country or around the dinner table is, what is New Zealand cuisine? And if you could have a menu, if you had friends from overseas coming to your place to eat, and you could maybe serve them 3 courses, what those 3 courses would be that represent New Zealand to you. So have a think about that, and I'd love to hear, throughout the day, come up and tell me what your menu would be. And I'll give you mine at the end of this session. I thought I'd start by playing a video just to get in the mood. I guess what New Zealand feels to me. This is some video footage that Kieran Scott, who's a great friend of mine, shot. He's done all the photography in the books that I've written over the years. He's a great friend, and this was some video footage that we shot around the time that we were shooting the photography for Stoked, which is a book that I wrote after Go Fish. It was more about meat cookery and the use of, or our love, or my love especially, well, I think New Zealand's love actually, of cooking on solid fuel. So just have a quick look at this. I adore this bit of video. Central Otago Basin, 7 a.m. in the morning, middle of August. Bit of snow around on the tops. Start of the new book Stoked. This is the first photo shoot with Kieran and Maddo, Duncan and Gary. We've got a whole lot of people turning out. We've got a whole lot of meat, a whole lot of wine. We're going to have a whole lot of fun. So that's just I guess, sort of set the scene of this country of ours that I'm sure you all sit there and go, wow, isn't it extraordinary? I always sort of think that we've won lotto, that we live here and all those opportunities that we have. I'm just going to, behind me while I speak, just a bunch of photos that we've taken over the years that have been in the books and bits and pieces. Again, I guess just I guess it represents the food that I cook, which is, I guess, the New Zealand food. I wanted to start by saying, I guess, I've been a little bit guilty in the past, and as I said, I've started writing this book about describing New Zealand, and I think Lorraine actually coined the term, and I've used it for a long time, as, you know, a bit of a culinary wasteland 40 years ago. And as I write this book, or as I think about it, I'm actually not sure that that's actually correct. I think sometimes, well, certainly when I've been cooking for a long time, and I've bought a lot of chefs' books and a lot of their memoirs and a lot of their biographies, and invariably when you open these books, and at the start of the books, it's all about these extraordinary idyllic sort of upbringings where they sort of wax on eloquently about, you know, picking tomatoes with Granny and Basil and sitting on the bench and making pesto and fresh pasta. And I always used to read these and go, oh, you know, people have had these incredible upbringings. And I always thought that ours was, you know, was pretty bog standard. You know, I grew up on a farm, and Mum was a pretty, she's not in the room, so I'm going to say she's a pretty average cook. But I do have wonderful memories of, I guess, well-cooked lamb hogget, or often the case, mutton. But, you know, the vegetables, we used to have mint sauce always, that we'd pick the mint, you know, that would be one of my jobs, to go and pick the mint. We had a crabapple tree, so we invariably had crabapple jelly with our roast as well. Really amazing memories of that, and I still adore that sort of cooking. Mum's pav, that was touch and go, depending on the year. And it was one of the first lessons, I guess, for me, that I understood that recipes can work, or sometimes they don't work, and for a whole lot of reasons. So that was quite a big lesson for me. She could make a pretty good banana cake. As far as I'm concerned, she made the best, and still makes the best ginger crunch in the country. And the other, I guess, food memory for me, which is very, very strong, was that she made an incredible peach chutney. And we always used to have that. And I grew up on the school bus eating cold mutton sandwiches with this peach chutney between two big blocks of white bread. And I still love cold meat and peach chutney. Anyway, I sort of, as I say, I've changed my tune, and reflecting back now, I guess, we do have a heap of great food memories. And I know, you know, you think about those, you know, you read those books, and, you know, and then you start reading about, you know, their seafood paella, or their duck and Toulouse sausage cassoulet, and it always sounds so much more exotic than, say, shepherd's pie or cottage pie or something like that. But if you think about a beautifully made shepherd's or cottage pie, if you think about the love that goes into that, and if you cook the mince with beautiful stock, and you cut the vegetables properly, and you reduce it all down, and then you have a layer of silky potato over the top and a blanket of gorgeous cheese that's getting crunchy around the corners, and you know, I think that you can garner just as much pleasure from something as simple as that, which sort of feels inherently New Zealand, as you can those other sort of fancy pants dishes. I also think, when I think back to my upbringing and around food, I'm now realizing that I had this incredible connection to the land and to the sea, and where the food comes from. And I hadn't really thought about that. But, you know, I mentioned mint and crab apples. You know, we had a small orchard, we had a lemon tree, we had a gooseberry bush. We had two, actually. And we grew a big vegetable garden. So I you know, it just felt normal that you were pulling parsnips and carrots out of the ground, and there was, you know, the pumpkins down by the pigsty, growing all down by the river, and going and picking pumpkins. And I never really thought too much about it. And again, I think it's that sort of slightly humble New Zealand, oh, it's just what we do. But they were pretty extraordinary. And growing up on a farm as well, and I'm sure, I hope I don't upset too many people here, but certainly not this front row, but the idea that, from the age of sort of 4, every Monday afternoon, I would sit on a wooden block in the killing shed with Dad or one of the farmers, and it was one of the shepherds that worked on the farm, and it was one of the things that I look forward to. I know that sounds terrible, but I was absolutely fascinated by the idea of killing sheep and the method of hanging them up and letting them, and then coming back a few days later after they'd set up and cutting them all up for, we had to kill the dog tuckers for the dogs, obviously, but then we also had to kill the muttons and the hoggets, etc., for the families that worked on the farm. And, from the age of 5 or something, I could tell you all the primal cuts, all the secondary cuts. I could tell you where all the offal came from. We'd always eat offal on a Monday night because, is that ringing true here as well? And so those sorts of things, again, are, I guess, experiences that a lot of people don't have. The other thing as well we lived in the Wairarapa, we lived on a farm out of Masterton, and for, I guess, the first 6 or 7 years growing up, we'd always have our holiday at a place called Castle Point, which is on the Wairarapa coast. We had an old wooden caravan that was nicknamed the Pie Cart, and we'd go and have our holiday in the campground at Castle Point. And I think back to those days, and everything basically revolved around low tide and fishing, and there's just up the coast, there's a really rocky area from Castle Point called Matakona, and we'd go up there and the fathers would throw their wetsuits on and grab an onion sack and swim out and get some crays, and we would basically forage or fossick around the rock pools for power, and we would stab flounder in the estuary there, and we would collect pippies at low tide, etc. And then these incredible feasts around the campfire, well, not the campfire, we used to have a 44-gallon drum, but we'd have manuka and that would get going. We'd have minces that would tie onto the back of the utes and we'd mince the power, etc. And again, I just sort of took all that for granted, but when I think back on it now, it's just absolutely extraordinary. That connection to where food came from, and it's very, very poignant for me. It's sort of, I guess it's always, well, certainly in the last few years, I feel that, as people do, we jump on planes to fly to France or to Spain or to Italy for these, these eating countries or these culinary countries that we've heard of for years and years and years. And it's a great, wonderful thing to do, but it always surprises me that we don't do enough in this country, because I think we're connected to you can go and sit outside a 300-year-old trattoria being served a beautiful dish by a gorgeous Italian man with an exotic accent, and it's all very, very wonderful, and the food tastes great, and you love it. But in this country, we're just that one step closer, and you can hop off a plane here, and you can come to this country, and you can be collecting shellfish off the beach in 2 hours' time and cooking it on a piece of corrugated iron. You can catch a trout in a river. You can catch a fish pretty much still anywhere in this country, and it doesn't have to be a snapper. It can be a kahawai, it can be sprat. They're all beautiful and they're all delicious, and I sort of think that that's what we should. It's another story, but I think this country, we should really be promoting ourselves as this extraordinary food destination, and especially these days. So I often get asked, what is our New Zealand cuisine, whether it's chefs I'm entertaining or I'm travelling, and it's always been quite a difficult one to answer, I guess. And the big thing for me is that I always come up with two things that are always ready to be rolled off the tongue, and the first is that we're just amazing bakers. And I think, as Lorraine would know, and being the editor of, Treasure of New Zealand Baking, which was written recently, or a few years ago, and again, it's just such a wonderful thing to be, I guess, slightly famous for that our baking, and that we grew up with cake tins and these delicious cakes and slices. You see it in our DNA, I guess, in our cafe culture. If you look in the window, there's always slices and always beautiful cakes. And if you travel, I'm sure many of you do travel, and I travel, and as you can see, I've always been fond of sweet things and any sort of baked goods. But I find that nothing ever comes close to New Zealand baking for some reason. I don't know whether it's, it's just the great eggs or the great butter, or, even now the halala vanilla, the connection there. But it seems like our baking is just such this wonderful thing to be proud of. And again, I think sometimes as this country, we are getting out of that, but we all, we're so humble about things like that. But a beautiful slice or a beautiful cake or a gorgeous sponge, or when you go to those, we've all grown up at the local hall, and there's been the Christmas get together, and then there's, everyone brings a plate. Again, we've grown up with that, and we think that that's just normal, but to other people to experience that sort of generosity, and it's kind of like you're putting your soul out there, or you're putting your signature dish out on that bench. And I just think that that's just a really wonderful thing to be proud of. So baking is always something I talk about very, very fondly. And growing up, Mum was not bad, but we had friends whose mothers were bloody awesome. And, you would go there to their place, just even if you didn't like the kid that much, at sort of, around smoko time, because you knew what was coming out of those tins was always going to be bloody good. The other thing that I guess that I talk about baking, but I also talk about our love of preserving in this country. We were a frugal bunch growing up, and we didn't want to waste much. And I mentioned Mum's peach chutney, which was fantastic. But we do make wonderful preserves, whether it's chutneys or relishes or jams or fruits or sauces. And again, I think just because we think it's sort of homemade, we're not particular. We sort of think, oh, it's just sort of run of the mill, but they're unbelievable. There was a piece that was pointed out to me 2 days ago in Lucky Peach about. Did anyone see that about our plum sauce? Did anyone? Someone was over here, I think they were down in this area actually, somewhere down around Dunners or down south, and they were here for some other reason. I'm not sure what it was. I had a quick flick through it, but they were served plum sauce, and we all know what that sort of lovely spice and acidity and sweetness, and he was just absolutely blown. He put it on everything for the next, the whole time he was here, and it was sitting there on the bench, and but isn't that a wonderful thing as well, that we have these beautiful recipes that have been passed down from generations, and both baking and these chutneys and relishes and preserves there's such a lovely giving thing as well. There's something that's transportable. There's something that, here, have this, and it's a piece of you, it's a part of you, and it's I love that sort of the way a recipe or a dish can transport people or I guess take them to another place or connect them to that person. The other thing, I guess, so that's sort of talking about the past a little bit, and now I just think that, over the last 30 years, this country, I think it sort of has had the steepest sort of culinary trajectory or growth spurt than I can think of any other country, and the reason I believe that we've had this is it's the OE effect. It's that we love to travel, and I think that there's been a lot of light bulb moments for people when they've got a pack on their back and they're traveling around different parts of the world, and we've suddenly all realised that we're sitting on a culinary goldmine. There's no two ways about that, and we understand that we have 4 seasons, we have fertile soils. We have sunshine, we have rain, we have beautiful little microclimates where you can grow things, lakes, rivers, oceans, foraging everywhere you turn. It is simply extraordinary. And I think, oh, well, if we could grow grapes, perhaps we could grow olives. Oh, we can do that. Well, maybe we can grow pine nuts. Oh, yeah, we can do that. Or maybe we can grow saffron. Oh, yeah, that's covered. What about wasabi? Yeah, we'll grow that. I mean, in every leaf and form that you think around the world, it's almost embarrassing what this country produces. And I think that that's incredibly special. I was talking to Lorraine before about, we've got these guys that have promoted, we've been promoting lamb and green shell mussels and Sauvignon Blanc, etc. around the world tirelessly forever and ever and ever. And those guys have done an amazing job paving the way to get us out there in that market. And, we're so far away from everybody, but now we're just discussing there's just this layer of all these other goodies that are out there ready to come on board and ready to hit that market. And it's a hard thing to do from this part of the world, but it's pretty extraordinary what we have. And so I think about not just the light bulb moments that we had, that we realized that we could cook or we could grow, but because we travel and a lot of us love to cook, we've also learnt and put our back, or certainly I did, and so many other Kiwis have done it, and there is just some absolutely extraordinary New Zealand chefs out there in this country and in the rest of the world doing extraordinary things with food. But I think that tidal wave of products that we've got, and then those talented chefs that are training all around the world, I believe, that we are serving up the best food in the world. I just think it's simply extraordinary. So we're not really getting anywhere with what is our cuisine. We're sort of touching on bits and bobs, but I think the big thing to me is we're not bogged down by tradition, and I think that's a really good thing. Most countries have a well-defined sort of traditional cuisine, which is at the core of a lot of their cooking. It's still, you can see that it's their DNA. But I guess due to the products and the produce that we grow and our travel, we have this freedom to draw down on all cuisines, and I don't think that we'll actually, it's very hard to define to think that we will just have a New Zealand cuisine, because I think because of the media and travel and every magazine that you pick up, every time you turn the TV on, there's no secrets out there anymore where it's all open to everyone. So it's not like I think, we're going to suddenly, because we can grow all this variety, I don't think we'll suddenly have this notable cuisine that sort of, when you say Italian, you think of something, or if you say French, you think of those, your mind immediately goes to those traditional dishes. So that's not I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's a great thing for us, to be honest, that we're in this sort of new world and we have all these products at our fingertips. But what we do have, I coined this phrase recently, well, not recently, a few years ago. I see Tony's over there. We were in San Francisco a few years for the America's Cup. And I was over there with the NZTE cooking New Zealand products. We did a few dinners and lunches and bits and pieces, but one of the big events was there's this San Francisco Chefs event where it's over 2 days. I think it was called Union Square, but they had these massive marquees, and over a period of 2 days, it was something like 150 restaurants or chefs were represented in there, and they'd do 50 in the morning, and then they'd change out 50 in the afternoon. And the same thing the next day. And anyway, I was over there with Hayden, who you may or may not know. He's sort of my shadow. He's always with me. He's from Balclutha, actually. Good southern lad. Bright ginger hair or beard at sometimes, and he's covered in ink. And he's sort of my clutch. I simply adore the guy. But anyway, he travels with me and does all the hard work, to be honest. But we were there setting up and doing these dinners, and we were setting up to do this chef's event, and I was looking around, they were putting up menus, and I was seeing them plating up dishes, and I was like, dog, mate, I think we're out of our league here. See what's going on all around us, all this amazing food, and just really, beautifully written menus, and I was seeing the plates go up, and they were all, works of art, and I was like, anyway. So we did our dishes, and we were there for the whole time, and people kept coming up and returning to our line, I guess, and there were thousands of people going through, and they just kept on going on about the flavour, and not so much the flavour of the dishes as a whole dish, but the flavour of the individual products that we were cooking, and because I guess my cooking is relatively pared back, it's all about those hero products, and they kept on going, and then Hato and I remember first, once they were changing out, we quickly scattered around, we both went different directions, grabbed a whole lot of dishes and came back, and we started eating them. And we weren't saying anything, but we kept on looking at each other, and we'd try another one, and then we'd try another one, and eventually, and this is where I coined this, I said, man, they've got to turn the volume of flavour up, or the flavour volume up on this food. And it just seemed like there were all these amazing looking plates of food, but they just had no depth of flavour compared to what we were. And it suddenly dawned on me that, that's what these people are talking about. The food that we were, they were saying the salmon, I've never tasted salmon like this, or this lamb, it's extraordinary. I didn't even knew lamb could taste like that. And so I've sort of said, I sort of use that all the time now. It's kind of like the volume of flavour, turn it up, sometimes turn it down. But I think it's quite a lovely analogy about the food that we grow here. It's kind of like the cob of corn effect. If you pick up corn from a roadside stand in the afternoon, if you're driving up around Gisborne or Hawke's Bay or anywhere or anything like that, and you cook it that evening, it's in another stratosphere of flavour. And it's still good the next day, it's still great actually. But each hour, in fact, and each day it just loses and loses and loses. And that can be a strawberry, it can be a peach picked off a tree, it can be, freshly cooked cooked potatoes. Bananas, where'd that come from? Potatoes, when you dig them, this idea that we understand how good food can taste when we cook it close to the proximity to where we harvested it or grew it. And I think that's like our ace card when we think about our cuisine, or what we are in New Zealand, is our proximity to, we're only, 70 miles from anywhere in the country from the coast. And it's that, I sort of feel that's what we're about. And I'm going to go into a little bit here, talk about my cooking or how I've cooked for years. And you're seeing, I guess, images of, oh, no, yeah. I don't know how that got there. Anyway, what is that? Some beef cheeks. But, and I don't want to offend anyone here, but I'm very sort of strong on this when I talk about, I guess, the flavour of food or the volume of flavour or what it's about. For me, cooking has always been about, I guess, simplicity. And I think that's, as I say, that's our ace card in New Zealand, is letting the products really shine for themselves. I've never been a big guy into the molecular scene. It doesn't feel, I get it, but I don't understand why you want to turn something that's red into green, or something that's round into a square, something that's liquid into dust. I get it, but I sort of feel sometimes that they're trying trickery or smoke and mirrors to create, to make people love the food, because it doesn't have the flavour to begin with. Or, I think Julia Childs once said something, you can tell by this food that it's been so played with hands, and it's been changed, and each time you touch food, or you move the food, or you change it, I think it loses something. I'm anti-garnish. I think food's beautiful without garnish. I think a casserole is a thing of beauty sitting on mashed potato. It's about the taste, and I worry these days about a lot of the food that's being plated up, and that it's it feels to me like florists and kitchens are becoming blurred spaces. This idea of, and tweezers, I thought that they were, tweezers are in hospital, aren't they, or for your eyebrows. I don't get that sort of, I get it, but it's just not for me, and I sort of think that it's too contrived, and I used to say to a lot of chefs, if you want to arrange things on a plate, maybe you got the right, maybe you should be a florist. Maybe, that's what I get it, but it just doesn't do anything for me. I will never cook anything in a plastic bag. I don't do sous vide. I understand why you do sous vide, but I like the challenge of cooking. I don't want something to be perfect. I like I like it chopped when it is charred on the corner. I like the idea of risk of cooking, the idea of cooking on fire or anything like that, where you take away as much of the things that make things perfect. And you have to be there, and you have to be diligent, and you have to understand what's going on, and you have to concentrate. It's about risk and reward, I think. It's about embracing the imperfections of food. That's what I love about it. I have eaten a lot of plates of tasteless and I think soulless food over the years, and the ones that can do it well are brilliant, and there are certainly a number of New Zealanders that are actually fantastic at that style of food. But my biggest fear is the young cooks. The young cooks that are coming through, that's what they want. They want tweezers in their hand. They want a squeezy bottle in their hand. They don't want to learn about why you cut vegetables up to this size, because if you're doing quick cooking, you chop them up fine to brunoise, or your bigger cuts, and all the laws of cooking, which I believe it's like a great architect or a great builder or anything like that. You have to do the yards and learn why things work in a kitchen before you can, before the creative can come in. I used to do this with the young chefs. When they all started getting cocky, they're suddenly like chop, 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 fire, and all up there, and they're all suddenly like, I'm the chef, I've got it all going on. Like, oh, okay, time for some potato swill to bring these guys down. And I would make a pot of basically potato swill, which was maybe a little bit of chicken stock and potatoes, and I'd just puree it with nothing else in it. And I'd say, right, come over here. Here's a pot of it for you. Here's a pot for you. Here's a pot for you. Go away. Come back in 20 minutes with something that tastes great using that. And it was that sort of getting them to understand what a palate is all about. And so they take that potato swirl, and the first thing hopefully they would do is season it. That would be the first thing that I'd be going down, a bit of salt and pepper. But then you might want to put some sort of fat product through there to give it a little bit of body. Then maybe you might want to cut that with a little bit of acid. Then you might be thinking about, maybe some spice in there, or maybe some herb. Then I might be thinking about texture for garnish or anything like that. And it's surprising. That's the sort of stuff that I think that the young chefs and the cooks, they've got to learn all that sort of thing first. It's before they want to be Heston, before they want to be Michael Meredith. All these great chefs that are out there and that are doing that sort of food. I understand, and we need all the spectrum of food everywhere, because it would be boring if we all cooked the same. But it's just so important. I think the one thing that's common is that we should all learn those things first before we branch out to the style that we want to do. So New Zealand cuisine, I think, to me, obviously it's about seasonality. Obviously it's about freshness. I think generosity and simplicity is a big thing too. When the volume of flavour is so loud, I think that restraint is a big part of it. It's got a big role to play in that. Often I'll just cook a lamb chop. I'll season it and I'll cook it, and that's all I want, is I want to taste a lamb chop. I want to taste the flavour of lamb. I don't want chutneys or relishes or gravy or anything else with it. And it's kind of like that pared back, and it gives you that, gee whiz, that's what it's about. Or a piece of fish with a squeeze of lemon juice on it. Again, it's that, just the purity of the actual product. And simplicity, I think, you can look at it and go, well, simplicity can be looked upon as easy, but actually simplicity is not easy. I think, if you don't nail it, it can be interpreted by people as being lazy or being negligent. So just because you're doing simple pared back food doesn't mean that it's any less than complicated and lots of moves on the plate sort of food. To me it's about and some of the greatest dishes I'm sure that you've eaten and the most satisfying at times is just the absolutely simplicity of one or two products on a plate that just merge, and the balance is absolutely extraordinary. And it's about not muddling those flavours. I remember when Steve and I were approached for the 2007 World Cup to do after the 2000, that was that one that we lost, in France, and we were approached to look at the next one, the 2011, to do the VIP food for some VIPs, sort of set up. And the catering company that was involved in France came over to New Zealand to show us, what had happened in France for all the VIPs. And I remember, the chefs with the big tall hats, and a lot of photos of them. And then there were these dishes, and I remember one dish was just this. It was like 3 scallops in a row, and there was some dots there, and it looked like a little, some micro herbs that looked like nature's pubic hair just sitting on top. And I looked at it and I went, oh my God, yep, that looks beautiful. But I was thinking, well, what would our scallop dish be? It'd be a bloody plate of scallops, that's what it would be. And it wouldn't be the chef, it would be the guy that had harvested the scallops or got the scallop. The story would be about the growers or about the farmers or not about us that are putting it there. The real heroes are the people that actually bring it to us, that do that. But, and as I say, a plate of scallops, which do you want? 3 with a couple of dots, or do you want 9 or 10 on the plate with a squeeze of lemon juice cooked in some butter? Because then again, that's it. The enjoyment factor for me is always going to be, well, probably because there's a whole lot more there, but is that you are eating a scallop, and that's what the dish is about. It's not about all the whistles and bells that you're putting next to it. 2 other things that I think that sort of help define our cuisine. The first one is the character of our nation. I think we feel awkward around formality. I think we always have. But I think we thrive in casual and carefree environments. And I guess a little bit of that is, if I think about Logan Brown, which I'm very, very proud of that restaurant, and Steve's still doing a fantastic job there as well. And we opened Logan Brown, and we won a few awards and bits and pieces, and it was the white tablecloth and the waistcoat. And it was funny because as a Kiwi, I came back from overseas and I thought, it's that same old New Zealand thing, I'm going to take on the world. What's the best sort of cooking? Oh, fine dining. We're going to be like all these other countries, and we'll do it that way, and we'll do it the New Zealand way, but it'll be fine dining. We're going to do that, and we did it. And as everyone would know, I left Logan Brown about 7 years ago, and because there was something that for me, even though we were doing, people were saying it was amazing, it was delicious, and I was very proud of what we were doing. There was something that didn't sit with me. It didn't fit my character, this style of food that I was cooking or that I was doing. And so I got out of LB and I thought, oh, well, I'm going to try and write some books now and do some, maybe a bit more telly and bits and pieces like that. And I had no intention. I sort of thought, oh, restaurants, I've done those, and we did a great one, but, I want to do other things now. And then I was approached, obviously, by Peter Gordon to say, oh, you should, this guy said, love you to do a restaurant. I was like, I'm over restaurants. And he kept bugging me, and I said, I mumbled something when I was walking away. Oh, if I did anything, it'd be a little oyster bar or something. Anyway, the phone rang about 20 minutes later. Oh, we've got a great space here for an oyster bar. Anyway, so I was kind of like, oh, okay, well, I'll come and have a look. And then I started thinking about, I guess, okay, if I was going to do a restaurant or build a restaurant, what is it or where is it when I'm at that I enjoy eating the most? And it just kept coming back to me, as Lorraine mentioned, was the batch, or as she said down here, the crib. And it just seemed to me that was, if all the great memories, or even if it was the campground or whatever, it was about the informality of the moment, but it was about the generosity of the product. And batches, they're just wonderful places, and they're like campgrounds. And essentially, it doesn't matter whether you're a high court judge or you're a freezing worker. Everyone's passing food around. You walk into the batch. There's one good pillow in the bunk room. The cutlery drawer's jammed with stuff that you never use. You'll drink wine out of a jam jar. It just doesn't matter, and it seems to fit our personality. And so I just went, okay, well, how do I, and it sounds blasphemy, how do I commercialize the batch? And that's essentially what was the vision of what I was trying to do with Depot, and because I felt that it fit our personality, and if we could somehow take that from the batch or the crib and turn it into a restaurant, I thought it would be great. And I started planning it, and oh, I'm going to have wine in tumblers. And I remember someone ringing me at like, I don't know, after 12 at night going, I can't sleep, Al, you can't serve wine in tumblers, you'll go broke. And I'm like, well, I've thought about this. Everyone drinks it out of a plastic cup at 30,000 feet flying between Dunedin and Auckland at 7 o'clock at night. At least I'm serving it in a glass. You know, and there was this, so, and I remember the first time I was given wine in a tumbler, and it was by a guy called Matt Hanna, who you may or may not know. He started Armadillo years and years ago, and he started Joe's Garage years and years ago in Queenstown. And I fly fished with him, and I remember going to his house, and he poured me this wine in this tumbler, and I went, oh my God, it just felt so right for me. And I felt that, you know, I get fine wine and I get beautiful glassware, and etc. And there's a lot of people out there that it's very important to. But to a hell of a lot of people, it's just unscrew the lid, the fun will come. You know, and just pour it in a glass and let's go. And I think that that's the character of the country. And so it was sort of like that. I wanted to do a raw bar because I wanted those memories for me from gathering, etc. I wanted to cook over charcoal and cook with manuka wood because, again, those smells of barbecuing and growing up eating that style of food over that style of heat was important to me. I wanted to use secondary cuts. Mainly secondary cuts because I can buy them for nothing and charge a whole lot of money for them. Not really, no, but I didn't want to have fillet steak. I didn't want to have racks of lamb. I wanted to show people that if you treat the most humble products in the correct way, they can be extraordinary eating experiences. And, you know, I even believe that someday an animal will just be sold as the same per kilo no matter where it comes from, because you can turn anything, any part of the animal into a dish, I believe, that'll eat just as well as any of the primal cuts. So, you know, and for me, it was about different fish species. It was about, I guess, sustainability. You know, we use the bellies of the fish, we use the wings of the fish. You know, if we can get cod livers at times, we try and use as many different varieties as possible on our menus. It's not just about snapper, blue cod and groper. And I think that's a big thing too, that we really need to understand that all the fish are great, and don't get me started on that. But the other thing about, I guess, Depot was that I felt that, you know, that informality was how we really enjoy dining, and you know, the idea of elbows on the table, the food arrives, the food is the vehicle for conversation, and I mean, it proved, I guess the idea was that it was proved to be right in the end, and I was intimidated by coming up to Auckland. I thought, oh, you know, I'm from Wellington, I'll just keep my head down, and you know, I'll just, you know, we opened the doors and we had the sort of, you know, too cool for school turning up going, you know, don't you know who I am? And I was like, no, but it'll be 40 minutes. And they never came back. They turned up and they never came back, and which is fine by me because we don't take reservations, you may have heard, and so all we do, you know, one of the big lessons to me is what you reap, what you sow, and all I wanted was humble, happy, I guess, intelligent, fast, exact sort of service and happy people. I don't do arrogance. I can't stand people that are surly or anything like that. And what I learned from that is that you reap what you sow, and so we surround our staff are just extraordinary, and all they seem to attract is extraordinary people. And it's been a big lesson, for, you know, and Depot's not for everyone. If you need to be somewhere to catch a plane, maybe it's not the place for you. But if, you know, you want to have, and surely we're in the entertainment game and restaurants, you should be going out for the evening. And if I come to your place for a dinner party, I don't walk in the door and sit down. We stand around and have a drink for at least an hour. So we're not, you know, as long as you communicate and you keep people, and again, it's that informality that seems to drive that place, that you'll get to Depot and there's lots of restaurants like this now, and I think it's wonderful. I think it feels like what we're about is that we enjoy that, I guess that together, the sort of the informality, the fun, as long as you're being communicated to, and the generosity of food. We'll always be serving you food. When you sit down, you'll be served immediately, and it's your table forever until you're finished. So it's not like we don't look after you out there and we don't look after you or take a long time to serve you. And depot for me is, I always wanted it to be for black, white, gay, straight, fat, skinny, everybody. Again, it's that batch sort of feel that everyone is welcome and no one is higher or lower or anything like that. And that seems to have sort of hit the mark. The other important thing, and I'm nearly there, but Lorraine mentioned it too, people and place is something that I find very, very important with the eating experience. I think if you think of the great eating memories that you have, there'll either be one or two things. It'll either be who you're with or where you were. And if it was who you're with and where you were, it'll be a memory that is etched in your mind for a long, long time. And there's some magic that happens there with the eating experience. I tell a story of, we used to go camping with the same, 5 families every year, kids ranging from sort of 3 to 11 or something like that. And we were staying up in Ahipara this summer, which is bottom of the 90 Mile Beach, and we'd been there for about a week or so, and it had been drizzling for about 3 days. It wasn't cold, but everything was damp, and we'd run out of ice, and everyone was getting a little bit gnarly, as you can imagine, me included. And I remember I think I stormed off, but I decided I'd bugger this, and I'm going to go fishing. And I went in, and we didn't have boats, and we were just fishing off the rocks. And fishing's great up there, and I caught 3 really decent kahawai in about an hour and a half, and it lifted my spirits immensely. And I thought, right, and I came back and I'm going to cook fresh kahawai fish and chips for the kids. Spent the whole day peeling potatoes. I had one little burner, and did the oil and cooked the chips, the fries once and then second, and got it. And we had newspaper and all the rest of it. It was still drizzling. And we sat there, and it seemed to lift everyone's spirits. We sat there eating fresh kahawai fish and chips, drinking warm Sauvignon Blanc. And it was still one of the best, it still puts the hair up on my neck when I think about that eating experience. And it was because we were in this incredible location, we were with these amazing people, and somehow, if I served that to you now, warm Sauvignon Blanc and kahawai fish and chips, you'd think I'd lost my mind. But that's sort of what it's about to me. So New Zealand cuisine, I guess, it's pared back, it's seasonal, because of the variety of product and our travel and where we come from and where we and the access to media and everything will always be all about this variety of food. But I think it'll be about the volume of flavour from the actual products, whether it be the wasabi, whether it's the lamb, whether it's the salmon, or whether it's the blue cod. So I'm going to finish with my menu, and I think that if there's any questions after that. And my menu changes quite a lot, but I'd always start with something raw, and it would be oysters, I would think, oysters or clams, or kina. And it's something raw, cold and fresh would always be my first course. I'm a big guy, so I'm allowed 5 courses, by the way. I would always next, and probably if I had to single one dish out that I think is, well, for me, represents New Zealand, and that is a fritter. I adore a fritter. Whether it's whitebait or it's pau or it's mussel, even the word fritter is gorgeous. It's kind of like it conjures up that feeling of like when you say ice cream, people won't get it, but if you say fritter, everyone loves a fritter. Oh, here are some fritters. So I'd definitely have a fritter, probably a whitebait or a tuata or a pau fritter. Next, I think you have to have some, well, I would have maybe a salad of some sort, which would be with smoked fish. I think smoked fish is a big part of New Zealand, and it would be with kumara as well. So maybe a kumara and smoked fish salad. I did something I was playing around the other day with a smoked fish cream, and we did kumara. It's not dolphin wise. What are the ones that you make the choux pastry to put in the potato that's in whole? What is it? Dauphine. But we did it with kumara, and we had a little bit of mustard through it, and that with a smoked fish cream. And I thought, gee whiz, that just screams Northland right there. So that one. Then I mean, I can't go past lamb. It has to be there in some capacity. Either it's a barbecued lamb chop or it's cold lamb, because we used to nearly every Saturday lunch, for some reason, we would have a salad, which would be cold meat. The roast from the night before. We'd always have pickled beetroot that Mum would have made. Tomato would have Highlander condensed milk mayonnaise, and iceberg and a tomato. And I know people must go, ooh. But they are food memories that I simply adore, and I still, and with fresh baby potatoes with those. So some hot and some sweet and some cold and some savoury. And then I would finish probably with something with a feijoa or something with a tamarillo, something New Zealand like that. But that's my menu, but thank you very much.
Goodness, it sounds like people at your place get food like my place.
Well, there you go. There you go.
Okay, that was absolutely amazing. We've got some questions for sure. No, you've stunned them. Thank you. Yes, question there. I'll repeat it.
I'd just like to thank you for your authenticity. I am always a bit worried about media figures and whether they're authentic, so straight away I recognise that in you.
What you see is what you get, mate. I'm a one-trick pony.
I'm from the Bay of Islands, so I understand we've been out harvesting way too many crayfish and feeding people and blah, blah, blah. But, we are very lucky with our natural resource. My question for you is our fast food culture in New Zealand. I'm just wondering your thoughts about that. I mean,
the question was, what does Al think about our fast food culture?
and is there a way of changing it? Education, particularly through the media. People like yourself must feel a responsibility.
Well, I think it is changing. I think that obviously when you talk fast food, I immediately, as soon as you said fast food, I didn't think of McDonald's or fish and chips so much. I thought of the food truck culture, which I take that as fast food. And so much of that, what they're producing, is healthy. And to me, it'll probably be the future of that. I have this Best Ugly bagel, which I guess you could say was fast food as well, but the toppings that we put on, etc. And I think I've become an ambassador for Garden to Table, which is about teaching kids, and certainly in lower decile schools, how to grow and how to cook and the joys of eating, etc. like that. And I think a lot of it is, it just, we're understanding now, and it's in our face that the burger, the fast food joint is not the way to go. And I think that the only way you can train that is through taste. And again, it's that volume of flavour or whatever, or getting products that are made fast but taste better than chips and burger.
Yeah, I think totally agree. I mean, your ugly bagel, that is really a fast food
That's a fast
chain
food.
in the making.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Yes, over here. You'll have to buy the book, eh?
No, it's a good question. It's a thin base, and you cook it quite dark. So there's a lot of dishes out there that should be called ginger soft, not ginger crunch. It's got to have the crunch, and I think it's keeping the base thin and cooking it so it's really crunchy.
Okay. And is it in your book?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
in the New
it's in
Zealand baking book? It's everywhere.
Yeah.
That's a great
Yeah.
recipe. Now, there was another question coming here. Yes, here.
Hi, I know you mentioned it at the end, how you would end a perfect meal with something sweet, like a dessert. What would it be from you?
Well, I was going to probably a crumble or a pudding of some sort, and I think that again that is what we do very, very well. It's that nod back to the baking and that humbleness again. I think of. I love a big dish that everyone gets served out of.
Do you ever do a pavlova?
I can't. I mean, I talk about a love of baking, and I don't know who there would understand that I have not. I have never been a great. I have about half a dozen or maybe 8 or so desserts that I sort of bring out in different disguises with different fruits and bits and pieces that I just roll out. But I'm not. I find cooking for me, it's so much. I'm not very good at weighing and measuring and being exact. I'm a lot more taste and throw in
But
and
it
work
is a
that way.
New Zealand iconic dish. isn't it?
Yeah, and a pavlova is definitely, you know, and it's a wonderful, I simply adore pavlova. I adore pavlova. And meringue, yeah.
Yes, here.
Absolutely.
Sorry,
Oh,
the question was for those people over there, is there a place for fine dining still?
I absolutely, you know, there are some extraordinary exponents of fine dining in this country. I think that there's definitely, absolutely, and there's enough people in this country that simply adore to eat that sort, you know, to understand the what people have done with the food. But what I do think is that there could be a blend, you know, like I think Simon Wright from the French Cafe in Auckland, he's my one that seems to have the balance of comfort and fine and down. And I think that that's what I sort of feel is, yes, there will always be room for fine dining, and people adore sitting down and having 6 courses and just work, you know, for a lot of people, just they're simply blown away with the presentation, with the flavour, the small, the amount, the different tastes, the waiting, being waited on in that way, and drinking wine out of beautiful glasses and the whole experience. I think it will be, but there will always be that, and I think it's trends probably as well, but I believe that informality will win over in this country.
No more? Yes, one more.
I don't know whether it would be based on the food, probably based on the rivers and fly fishing, to be honest.
The question was, which country would you go to?
I have a, you know, people will be aghast, but I simply love North America, and I mean the cities of, you know, the San Franciscos, the New Yorks, the Chicagos. I like that there's this, and there's great movements in there around local eating and cooking, but I love I love the way that I like countries that are not bound by tradition. I like the newer countries than the older countries, I guess. So probably, not if Trump's going to be there, but maybe Alaska. I'm not sure.
Southern barbecue.
Southern barbecue as well. Exactly. That's a tough one. It's kind of like you know, it's you know, who's your favourite child? At the moment.
Okay, last question, Rebecca. Okay, Al's favourite place in New Zealand for hunting and fishing?
It's a really interesting question. After we did the Hunger for the Wild series, I got people, and they still come up to me and go, Al, got this, you know, little place that I want to show you, but I don't want anyone else to know about it. But if you're filming, you can't do the horizon, otherwise people would recognise it. And I love that because it just kept happening and happening and happening. And the thing about this country is that there are places that are gorgeous and special to everyone. And I love the way that the people regard them and look after them as they are their places. But what they don't realise is that everyone's got a special place in the country. And I simply adore the whole place, and wherever I'm at is the favourite place at that time. And you know, whether it's a sandy beach, or it's shingle, or it's a river, or it's a lake, or it's in the bush, I just think that, you know, as I said earlier at the start, I think we've won lotto. You know, we just simply live in the most beautiful country with the best food in the world.
And on that is a wonderful note to end. Thank you very much. I'd like you all to join me in thanking.
Thank you.